Welcome, everyone, to the West Virginia Homeschool Podcast. My name is Chris Polk. This is my wife, Karen. This is Karen's first ever podcast. I've been podcasting for a while, so I'm a little used to this. So this will be her first time. We wanted to take an opportunity to introduce ourselves. We started this project about a year ago, and I have a full-time job. I'm a full-time truck driver. I have a lot of business responsibilities, and with the pandemic, it's been crazy for us. So we just haven't really had the time to get this podcast started. But here we are, and we started the West Virginia Homeschool Hub website about a year ago, and the reason we did that was because in the midst of this pandemic, we saw people get thrown into, oh my gosh, I'm a homeschooler all of a sudden. And there were, some people were like, well, are we formal homeschoolers? What do we have to do? What are the requirements? Because in the beginning, the virtual thing just wasn't, they were talking about it, but they weren't doing it. And there were people that were kind of rightly upset, like, okay, well, if you're going to do this, I'm just going to homeschool. Well, but nobody knew where to start. And the homeschool community in West Virginia is pretty strong in that there's a lot of information and a lot of great Facebook groups, but there was no place where all of the information really, was easy to find. The Facebook groups are a terrible place to put information. And so we thought, okay, well, I know how to do a website. So we figured we'd throw this together, and that way anybody from any background, regardless of their faith, regardless of their association, regardless of their location, they're in the state of West Virginia, could find information easily using this website. So we probably spent you're muted, Karen. We probably spent about a month, getting it together. Well, I'm trying to unmute you, but you're muted. You got to click that little button down there on the left. I may have to send one of the kids in there as reinforcements. There's a little button down there on the left. Are you clicking the mute button? And it's not unmuting? Well, we have a problem. It won't let me unmute you from this side. Oh, technical problems. Try pressing your space bar and see if that will unmute you. Now talk. Oh, boy. Well, shoot. Okay, now try it again.
Hello.
There you go.
Hey.
All right, now we're in business. Okay. So we spent a month maybe putting the website together, trying to take because all this information was spread out everywhere. It was on this website and it was on that website, and there were Christian organizations that had some and secular that had some, and the state had some stuff. Of course, then you have to watch because the state doesn't always update their stuff correctly. So it was just kind of a mess. So we wanted to provide an opportunity with a single point of contact for people to do this, because when we came into this, and that's kind of what we're going to do, is tell our story of how we came into this and how we got started. Because you just had to go find it, and unfortunately you can't really go to the school system because they either don't know, don't care, or they'll lie, you know, and or they'll say, "Well, our policy is," and the response to that is, "Well, I don't really care what your policy is. I care what the law says." So this was just kind of something that we thought we could do to try to help, and so here it is. So we're gonna start telling this story, um, and that way you just kind of get a grasp of who we are and how we got here. So. Um, We met in 2003. We got married in 2004, and our first daughter was born in 2006. And for me, before we even got together, I had something in the back of my mind that I couldn't identify. I think I can identify it now, so many years later. But there was something in me that said I wanted my kids to have something different than what I did, because I was thrust into life outside my little bubble at 21 years old when I started driving a truck over the road. And I discovered very, very quickly that I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared by my education. I wasn't prepared by my upbringing. I had a lot of rude awakenings. And there was something in me that was telling me my kids should be homeschooled. Now, listen, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, homeschoolers were kind of looked at weird, and it was long skirts and hair buns and really fundamentalist religion, and or at least that's what the popular culture said. Now, I had a cousin that homeschooled her kids, and I mean, they're like doctors and nurses and stuff, so at least I got to see that side of it where it wasn't that stereotypical view of homeschooling. So Karen and I get together, and I can remember some early conversations about, well, maybe, sort of, kind of, maybe we could, but we were not all that serious about it until we were living in Ohio. And I'm going to have you pick up this part of the story about 2011. And that's when we're like, oh, we have to homeschool. So go ahead from 2011 and tell that part of it.
So our oldest was getting ready to start kindergarten. And actually, we lived like 10 minutes away from a elementary school. And so we started the process of looking into enrollment. And we get this letter from the board in that county saying that our daughter was going to be shipped like a half an hour away. And that made no sense to me, because I'm like, but we live here, and not even 10 minutes down the road is an elementary school. Why can't she go there? Well,
Right.
She was, I guess, selected to go elsewhere. So that was unsettling to me. And so by that point, at the church we attended, I had already made connections with fellow homeschoolers. So
now, were a bunch of those, that was in MOPS, right? The Mothers of Preschoolers thing, right?
right.
Here's a little side note about Columbus. There's more people in Franklin County, Ohio, than in the entire state of West Virginia, right? So we had a little bit of culture shock going on, and we lived in an area called the Hilltop, and it was like 2 blocks good, 3 blocks bad, 2 blocks good, 3 like it was so weird because we lived in a good neighborhood, but literally 1,000 yards that way was like the ghetto. And then just on the other side of it was another good neighborhood. So it wasn't like it is in West Virginia. So you had there was literally a school, right? There wasn't an elementary school behind our house. Like, you could walk out the back door, boom, there's an elementary school. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to send her to this Columbus City school. That's another difference about Ohio. In West Virginia, everyone's accustomed to the county boards of education. Well, you had Franklin County, but you also had Columbus City, and you had all of these little little geographic districts, and it was just so different. So, like she said, when it became real to us that we were about to send our daughter to a school, a Columbus City school, rather than a whatever the other one, and there were charter schools, and just there were lots of choices. But we pretty much made the decision at that point that, like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to homeschool. We had met some homeschoolers, went to this huge church in Grove City. And so we decided with our oldest, and we went and bought $1,000 worth of curriculum.
Close to it, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, and it came in boxes and
Box day, yeah.
box day. Yeah. So all this curriculum showed up. We got it all from one provider called Sunlight, which is great. It's really good stuff. And, their program is very centered around reading, and she had been reading
Since
for
4.5.
Yeah. So here she's 6 and she's reading. So we're oh, this is a great program. And so it was fine, and we had a 3-year-old at the time. So he's kind of tagging along with this. And so we're doing this combination preschool, elementary school, kindergarten thing. And we ended up about 2 years later, we moved back to West Virginia and have been here ever since. But what I have found is that as we've gone along, it's not that we have found new reasons to homeschool. It's a realization of why we're doing it. Like we discover reasons that we do it versus sending the kids to school. And when this pandemic hit last year, our kids, other than a couple of extracurricular activities that got knocked out, like the archery team, our kids' lives hasn't changed. They have the same friends. There was no disruption for them. Wholesale, where kids that were used to going to school and seeing a lot of the same people, that was just ripped away from them, and it was very traumatic. So neither one of us, I would think, would consider themselves, up to last year, an activist, someone that would go, I'm going to do something. We've always been very vocal about our beliefs, and not shied away from controversy, so to speak. But not to this level, not to say, okay, we're going to start a website and we're going to start a podcast. And so this homeschool hub idea came from Karen 5 years ago, probably. Her vision, and I'll let, I'll have her go into this, but her vision was kind of, wouldn't it be cool if there was a building where homeschoolers could meet in a classroom, in an auditorium, in a gymnasium, that it was just very loosely organized, but it was one place. Hey, this is the homeschool hub. This is the place you could come to if you want to have an event, if you wanted to have a class, if you wanted to have a dance class or music lessons, or, bring in a scientist, and do experiments or whatever it was. And we still have that vision. But we decided last year to kind of make it a digital property. So why don't you talk a little bit about that idea, where it came from?
Just the frustration of not having one place to be able to come together with like-minded people. Homeschooling itself is a diverse group of people. So like you said, my vision was to have a building, and I believe one day we will have a building. I love co-ops. Co-ops are great, and they fit the need for people in their along their journey. But there's people like me that's been a part of co-ops, and then we don't necessarily want it as a weekly or daily thing. We want it more of just a free space to come together with like-minded people and be able to have a class or hear a lecture or do an activity, do something fun.
Because the difficulty is the co-ops they can become, not all of them, some of them can become very cliquey and in some cases over organized, you know, and very much like school, you know, and a big part of this is trying to break away from the Prussian school model. You know, that's as I at 45 years old now, and having been removed almost 25 years or more than 25 years from the Prussian government school system, I understand fundamentally that the system is the biggest part of the problem. It is the problem. It's not a teacher problem. It's not a board of education problem. It's not a curriculum problem. It's a system. It's a robot training factory schooling system meant to produce a certain result. And that is very malleable, compliant, obedient rule followers that don't ask questions, that are not creative, that fit very well in a very strict corporate environment, that will shut their mouths and do what they're told. Well, in my world of that doesn't work in self-employment. It doesn't work in entrepreneurship. It doesn't work as a tradesman. You have to be everything the government schools teach you not to be in order to find success. So to have a place that exists where you can have a one-time, we're going to come together and watch a guy give a lecture on history, or we're going to get together and have a guy, a teacher, give a lecture on science or whatever it is, and then we're done. Like, we come in, and those who are interested come from kindergarten to high school. They come in, and then they leave, they could certainly have weekly meetings in here, but it's not a top-down, this is how you're going to do it. You could literally have two classes going on in two rooms side by side, coming at one subject from opposite ends. You could have people that disagree doing this. That's what we want, and we want to be able to. We want it to be able to move with whoever, and not be stuck into one religious faith or one political kind of philosophy. Everybody can come and have something there. So that's something we're going to work very hard on in the future. Maybe we'll take over one of these old closed down big box stores, and so that's kind of thing. So, I am professionally, I am a driver, I'm a manager, I'm a logistics guy. I'm also a trainer and a mentor in the company that we have. And we have an opportunity. We do a podcast called the Blue Ribbon Podcast. It's on YouTube. And what we do is offer an opportunity for people that have a desire to be self-employed in the trucking industry. We bring them in as an employee so they can learn how to do this slowly and without risk, and have their chances of success be much greater. So because of this podcast, we get some really, really, really high quality applicants. I mean, they're already kind of on the program, if you will. But what we have found is that about 25% of our interviews turn into counseling sessions. And it is because of the brainwashing and the training that people get from government schools and corporate mind control that we have to counsel them. We have to tell them that they have value. We have to somehow dig deep inside them to activate their natural curiosity, to their natural creativity that has been beaten out of them by government schools and corporations. And then when we bring them into the program, I make the joke. I tell them, we have to unplug your brain, rewire it, and plug it back in. And it's such a challenge to get these fundamentals. And it is my fervent belief that it's because of this system. And so often we see people come into the community. Most of the time, they're just concerned about their kids. They just love their kids, and they're in the school system. And of course, the kid comes home and they've got 6 IEPs pinned to their lapels, and all of these what do you call them? The diagnosis. All here's everything that's wrong with your kid. There's nothing wrong with the system.
Right.
Your child is the problem. So we've got to modify your child chemically. We've got to give them drugs, and we've got to give them all these special plans. I'm not against the IEP. I mean, individual education plan, that's pretty much homeschooling, right?
Right.
Because we have 3 kids. They're all different.
Very different.
They're completely, you can't teach them the same thing all the time. And so they come in, and of course they don't know where to start, and we're like, file an NOI, notice of intent, send it certified mail, return receipt requested, and don't talk to the board. And you're a homeschooler. Under West Virginia law, that's it. You send that piece of paper the minute you get the receipt that it was delivered, or no, that it's sent. You're done.
Yeah, that it's sent, yeah.
Yeah, that it's sent. You are a homeschooler. And then the real freak out begins. Well, what am I going to do? And how many hours do I have to spend? And how much curriculum do I need? And my response is always, number one, relax. Calm down. You've won. It's over. You have now saved your child from the government school system. And you can relax, and you can let them play, and you can let them detox from this environment, probably detox from some medication, and you can let them play. And then you can learn who this little human is and what's special about them, and what are their talents, and what are their strengths, and what are their interests. And then you can say, oh, wow, well, this child really does love Minecraft. Y'all, do you realize how much educational value there is in Minecraft?
There's Minecraft curriculum out there, too.
Yeah. So, well, all my kid ever wants to do is play Minecraft. Great. That's awesome. You have so many opportunities now because you have found the thing. You have found the currency that makes this child get excited about learning. It's Minecraft. It's Fortnite. It's playing in the dirt. It's books. It's Harry Potter. It's whatever
Bugs.
it is. What?
Bugs.
Bugs. Oh yeah. Bugs are huge. But we fail to see the opportunity. It's my boss. It's one of his taglines is see the opportunity. Stop trying to do school at home. You're trying to recreate and copy a model that doesn't work. Now, it does work for some people. And if you go, it's on Spotify now, but if you go to the Joe Rogan podcast, there's an interview that he did with John Mackey, who's the CEO of Whole Foods. Now, full disclosure, when I saw this and I heard Whole Foods, I went, oh, no, he's probably some progressive, yada, 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 and I don't want to hear anything this guy's got. Well, no, John Mackey's brilliant, okay? And Joe Rogan asks him, well, what's the problem with entrepreneurs and academia anyway? Because there's this battle back and forth, between people that are entrepreneurs and people that are academics and intellectuals, and there's this fight, right? John Mackey made it so brilliantly clear in this episode. I'll paraphrase. With the intellectuals and the academics, the people that are running the universities, they come through this Prussian model and they do everything right. They pass every test, they get every grade, they get all the accolades and awards. Hey, congratulations. Wow, you are special. You are good. You're the valedictorian. And then they go to college and repeat. And wow, you're great. And you've written the papers and you've done the study and you've joined all the honor associations and you've done and now you're going to go get your master's degree and then you get your doctorate and everything is great and wonderful and you've done everything right. And you get out and the market says, congratulations, here's $50,000 a year. And they go, what? But I just got all the awards and accolades and I did everything right. And I'm 50 grand. That's it. Meanwhile, Steve Jobs, the college dropout, is a billionaire. He must have done something wrong, right? Because you have entrepreneurs and tradesmen, you have plumbers now and heavy equipment operators and truck drivers that make more money than people that have more degrees than a thermometer. They don't know how to handle that. They can't comprehend why the market, which is us, would reward people that don't have college degrees and aren't PhDs and don't have all of these letters after their names. Well, why is that guy getting all this money and I'm not? And it comes down to value. I'm as a truck driver, I make a lot of money for a lot of people, and all they have to do is give me a little bit of it, and I'm in really good shape. Same thing with dozer operators and plumbers and electricians and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning installers and contractors, and construction outfits. They provide an incredible value to the market, and they're rewarded for that. So we've got to understand as homeschoolers that it's our job to prepare our children for life. My education really began when I had been out of school 10 years. I'm unschooled. I'm 45 years old. I'm unschooled. Karen, 46 years old, unschooled. The last 10 years of our lives has been the discovery that we should have experienced in school, but we didn't. Karen and I both graduated from the same county in West Virginia. She graduated in 1993. I graduated in 1994. And unfortunately, we were both clueless, unprepared. And look, there's a lot of people want to blame their parents. I can't, and here's why. My parents are in their late 70s. Karen's parents, early 70s. So they went through the government school system from about 1940 or 1950 to 1970, okay, in that 20-year span. So their experience in the school system was very different from ours, from 1970 to 1990 or 2000. The school system actually did teach them a lot of fundamentals of math and reading, and like they could read and they could do math, and then
home economics.
They had a better grasp. So it was natural for them to assume, based on their experience just 20 years ago, well, I mean, I went through the system and I was fine. But see, they had no idea what happened between the time they got out in the 60s and 70s until we came along, and it was a completely different environment. Excuse me. And it was not preparing us for what we were having to do. So we can't really blame our parents, but we can blame us because we're in a position to know better. You know, I can't ignore what's been happening in these schools the last 25 years. I can't ignore what happened in these schools from 1988 to 1994. You know, I mean, I could try, but I can't do it. I can't do it with a clear conscience and say, well, yeah, I mean, I know we had problems back then, and I'm sure they've all been fixed by now. So I'll go ahead and send my kids in there. We just can't do it. Our kids are too precious to us. And why don't you talk a little bit about this age grade level thing? You know, because we see friends right now that are struggling with this, trying to keep up with the school system and the age thing.
That's part of deschooling. Once you get out of the system, it takes a while to find your own way. I get that. I see people struggle with trying to keep their kids on, well, what does a second grader, what are they supposed to know? And then try to force that child to do that level of stuff. Well, the child may not be ready to do that stuff.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. What I've found is that so-called grade levels on these materials that you can purchase, because if you go out on the internet, the curriculum choices are, I mean, it's overwhelming, truly.
Which is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it is a blessing and a curse, because a lot of people don't want to spend the money on certain things. And I get that. And there's a lot of free resources out there.
Oh, yeah.
And this is part of why the Homeschool Hub and why these other social media groups exist, is to help, answer questions and to give ideas about curriculum and whatnot. But the thing is, you need to meet your child where your child is at. Don't force, just because public school is now making kindergarteners read. When I was back in my day, we didn't start reading until like first grade.
Yep.
Really well in second grade. And now they have just pushed and pushed and pushed these children. And it's like, let them play, let them be children. And yeah, sit down with them in small increments of time, but don't overwhelm them. It's like they will get it. If you just give them the time and the ebbs and flows of what's going on around you. For example, our 6-year-old, he loves math. I mean,
yep.
But he will bring it to me, and we're night owls. There's times we'll do math, 2-3 times during the day, and there's sometimes we won't do it at all. There's times when he does bring the book to me and we go over it and we do it and we're doing it, and he does it till he gets it right. I don't give grades,
right.
Especially, I never personally gave grades all through elementary, middle school. Now we're entering the high school, and because transcripts, we navigate that. But I never gave grades. My kids do it until they get it right, until they understand it.
Right.
If he flips his numbers, even though he got the number right, and I'll just say, just reverse it, buddy, and he'll do it and he'll be great. But then, buddy, he'll tell you when he's done, he'll put the pencil in the book and he'll shut it and he says, I'm done. And I have to respect that, because if I push, then we're getting nowhere.
Yep.
So it's you got to listen to each individual child. They're all
And
different.
it's not to say that that you don't have discipline. We have discipline.
Yeah.
You know, we have always, well, Karen, because I've been on the road, but Karen has always gotten compliments in restaurants. Random people will walk up, wow, your kids are so well behaved. Of course, I'd make some crack like, well, we beat them every night before we go to bed. And she's like, will you shut up? But obviously, you have to have discipline. You have to have boundaries. You have to teach manners. That's a given. But I do not believe for a second that these curriculum programs in these government schools or Catholic schools or private schools or charter schools, because it's all the same model. It's all the same Prussian model. I don't believe for a second they're doing that for the benefit of the child. They're doing that for the benefit of themselves. They're doing that for the funding. They're doing that for the blue ribbon, because they want somebody to give them a star. Oh, well, look what we're doing with these kindergartners that they don't understand. Go ahead.
On the flip side, when you join the homeschool, us as parents need to be careful not to make our children our little trophies.
Right.
What I'm saying is we need to be careful just because one excels or whatever in something, that you don't set the next kid up for that standard and or just making them do a certain curriculum so you can brag to your friends, oh, we're doing this. Mm-hmm. Or we're part of this co-op, or we're, whatever. You should be doing it because it's benefiting your family. You should be using whatever curriculum because it's what works for you all. It shouldn't be because so-and-so bought this, or, well, this family, they've used this and I have to use it too. It may not work for you. So you have to be flexible and not fall in the trap of comparisons or, every child can be successful. Every child.
Yep. Without question. I mean, I'll never forget this experience we had. We went to the big homeschool convention in 2014. And I mean, my gosh, it's curriculum as far as you can see. And there was one called Matthew C with the letter U. And I'm like, oh, this looks cool. So we go to the little demonstration, and the guy's doing a problem. Now, Karen has always said, well, I'm no good at math. I can't do math, and I'm no good at it, and blah, 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 which was BS. She's perfectly capable of doing math. She just doesn't do it that way, right? So we're sitting in this thing, and the guy's explaining this process, and I think it was like 13 times 15. And here's my wife sitting beside me that can't do math, that just blurts out the answer, and I'm like, who are you? Because they explained it to her in a way that she could get it. Okay? So we have a couple of kids on Matthew C. We have one on CTC Math. That's what makes me so angry about this system that demands our attention and demands our allegiance and demands our respect, and it doesn't deserve it, because we live in 2021, y'all. I just saw a comment from Marianne Evans Kenner. I'm needing to find some of these free sites to mix up my daughter's curriculum. What I'm finding is boring worksheets. Okay. So we found one. Let me pop this up here, called Schoolhouse Teachers, and what's that say? $39 a quarter and a free. I mean, they run these plans. They
run specials all the time.
Yeah. They run specials all the time. And it's K through 12. And it's like $150 for a year. Sometimes I think you can get a buy one, get one free. and get 2 years for $150. And then you just go on there and you can download a whole course or not. Or like you say, or you can get worksheets or you can get workbooks. But again, we're getting back to this problem of thinking that all learning comes from a book, right? In our model, in our business, I was watching Karate Kid 1 with our oldest, Kaylee. And I'm watching Mr. Miyagi. Y'all, I've seen this movie 50 times. And Mr. Miyagi comes up, wax on, wax off, sand a floor, paint a fence, you know? And I went, oh my God, that's it. Wax on, wax off. It works because it's tangible and it's real. Not everybody can learn from a book, but almost everybody can learn from experience, you know? So finding ways that gets through to your kid, movies, workbooks, TV shows,
YouTube channels,
monster truck rallies, whatever it is, because life is your teacher, right? Life is your teacher. When I hit the road in 1997 as a 21-year-old, the whole world got smaller all of a sudden, because when you can get in your truck and drive to California, like it takes a lot of the, oh, it's a big country. Not really. I mean, it's pretty good size, but it's not that big. It's not Africa, right? But going around and getting to the West Coast and being like, oh, well, these people are, I mean, they're just like people back home. Or going to Massachusetts, well, these people are just like they are back home. Their dialect's a little different. Little nuances. But the things that I have learned through experience and through discovery has far outweighed anything I was ever shown in a book. I was fortunate in my schooling. I had some pretty good math teachers, but I'm saying that as somebody that's really good at math. So were they really that good? I don't know if they were that good or not. I was good at math, and so maybe all they had to do was hand me the book and I was good at it. But life is our teacher. I can remember taking Kaylee into Giant Eagle, a grocery store, and we're standing at the deli counter. Oh, gosh. She had to have been 4 or 5. And I'm holding her, waiting for some shaved ham or something, and she's reading the signs. And this lady looks and she's like, how old is she? I'm like, 5. She was already reading. She was already understanding numbers. I take my 6-year-old to Piggly Wiggly, and they have his own special little cart, you know, that he loves to push around. That's his size. And he gets it because someday he's going to have to go to the grocery store. He's going, which, you know, he's hilarious now because he's a little chef, you know, and he makes his turkey, mayonnaise, and Dorito sandwiches, you know, and he's got his little knife out and he's cutting it up in squares, you know. Y'all, that right there is just as important as trigonometry. The boy can make himself a sandwich. He knows how to put clothes in the dryer and clothes in the washer, and he knows how to run the dishwasher, and he understands how to live. That's what we have to be teaching our children. They need to be able to read, comprehend what they read. They need to be able to write, both composition and mechanically, handwriting. And they need to be able to do math. If we'll just turn off all this noise and all this nonsense that we're being taught by this failing system and teach them reading, writing, and math, reading, writing, and math, reading, writing, and math, everything else works itself out. They can be a scientist. They can be a doctor. They can be an astronaut. They can be a teacher, a truck driver, a plumber, a welder. If they can read, write, and do math, everything else works out. But the system doesn't do that. It's a conveyor belt. It's an assembly line. And they come along and they stamp their forehead and they move them on to the next thing without any concern whether or not they actually understand the basic concepts of the things that they were supposed to be taught.
Right.
And it just infuriates me that it's 2021 and we still haven't figured that out. We are. More and more people are figuring it out. And thank you, pandemic, for getting a lot of parents to pull that trigger, because the state basically went and said, yeah, we're going to shut this down. You're on your own. And parents went, oh, I'm on my own. I guess I'm going to have to figure this out. Well, guess what? A lot of them figured it out. And more are figuring it out. And even the kids are figuring it out. I talked to a 19-year-old this morning, and he gets it. He understands the limitations that have been placed on him. And he's telling me that his generation is looking around at us right now that just walked through this crisis and walked through this pandemic and our response to it. And they went, okay, y'all a bunch of idiots. You know, what are you doing? Have you guys lost your ever-loving mind? But we're so busy staring at that magic box on the wall and waiting for, you know, the experts to tell us what we're supposed to think, believe, and feel. So there's no way I would send my kids to a government school ever, or a private school or a charter school, unless it was, what's the one called? Montessori. Montessori's pretty
Which
good.
Montessori's, they put kids of multiple ages together, which is real life, and they learn together and they mentor each other. That's what we are called to do, is mentor one another. Take what you've obtained in knowledge and be able to share it with somebody else, or teach somebody else what you've learned. That's what the goal should be, that everybody should have something that they can give, contribute, share, to serve one another, to better our communities, our world. I mean,
Voluntarily, without force, coercion, and threat.
Exactly.
You know, that's the other elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about. It's like they literally put a gun to your head and take your money by force to pay for these schools. And then they're like, well, you better thank us for our service. And I'm going, no, because your service sucks. You know, no, I'm not going to thank you for your service. No, I'm not doing that. You know, I can't do anything about the money that you take from me by force to fund it. You know, but I can not participate. You know,
Right.
That disobedience in this day and age is pretty much all we have left. That's a whole other episode. You know, this is our story. This is how we got here. And, you know, I want to get Kathy Krause at some point on the podcast to tell her story, because there are so many people that have so many fascinating stories about how they became homeschooler. Some didn't have to go through any trauma, you know, they're just like, and that's pretty much us.
Yeah, we didn't. We just decided from the get-go that that wasn't for us, and that's the direction we took. But we have friends that's either started out homeschooling, and then as their children grew, they decided to put them in private school or put them back in public school. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's, again, what's best for your family and your child. I mean, you have to, it's a case by case. I mean,
yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we're having this discussion about, you know, current events and, you know, and big tech and censorship and tracking and, you know, and all this Orwellian stuff. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Yeah, that's probably true in Putnam and Kanawha County. But what about if you're out in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia? I wonder if maybe there are out away from these influences. Maybe there are schools that are underfunded that don't have the funding for all this nonsense, so they're just teaching them reading, writing, and math. I don't know. I mean, the way the system operates is it goes down to the very cellular level, and it wants to manipulate everything and everybody. So but we were just talking about, well, being off the grid. Well, really, I mean, you can be 20 miles out and be off the grid as far as that goes. You don't have to be right in the middle of a town or a city, to be away, to remove yourself kind of from those influences. But there's never been a better opportunity in the history of man, in all of human history, to have the kind of resources that we do with the internet, the other people that are doing it that you can network and communicate with, and put together field trips and play dates, and and get somebody together and just spontaneously do a class, using church buildings or YMCAs or whatever it is. And again, it goes back to why we want to do the hub, because if you're not Christian, you might not want to go to a church, right? Well, we want to have a place that you can go if you're a Christian or if you're not, and I would love to see interfaith stuff, Muslims and Christians getting together, and Jewish people, and, whoever they are, because we could use that opportunity to learn from one another. Because I can promise you, I'm probably better off learning about Islam from a Muslim than I am from the television. My kids are probably better off learning about that. And your kids are probably better off learning about Christianity from me than from the television, and so why not have those opportunities where people of different backgrounds and faiths and ethnicities and origins can get together and say, well, I'll tell you what it was like growing up in Ethiopia. I can tell you what it's like living in South America. But we've allowed this system and these hierarchies to have control of information. And they're the last people on earth that should have that kind of influence and control. And we can take it away. All we have to do is say, you know what? Nope, I'm out. Thank you. Turn it off and go talk to somebody. I have a guy working for me that grew up near Bogota, Colombia. And fascinating stories that he tells. He's a permanent resident now, and he's married. And but to hear from him what it's like to immigrate to the United States, and what it's like for him to have family that's down there, and now he's building this new life, and he's got family literally spread out all over the world. I would much rather spend 30 minutes talking to him about what's happening on the other side of the planet than getting it from the government or the media. So I digress. So that's pretty much our story in a nutshell. We're going to do some more episodes, hopefully weekly. I'm still driving full time, and so bear with us as we work on getting a consistent schedule. But our next episode, I think we're pretty much set, is going to be on getting started, filing your NOI, how to kind of get the basics started, because is the running joke in the homeschool community is, people having used desks for sale because, I'm a homeschooler, I need a classroom. So they go buy a bunch of crap that they never use because it all ends up the kitchen table, and then have to sell all this stuff. So we'll kind of show you our setup and how we do it, and how you can get started today. So if you have questions, you can send us an email at wvhomeschoolhub@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, wvhomeschoolhub.com, and we have these buttons here. We tried. This is not a pretty website. It wasn't meant to do that. It was meant to be simple. So you can come here and you can click on getting started, and we can get you to understand, the laws and regulations and the things that you need to do of how to get started. And it's all right there on the website. So just go check out wvhomeschoolhub.com. And I guess that's it. You got anything else you want to add?
Well, just about the hub, our digital hub, it's basically made up of, we've linked information from all these groups and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're not taking credit for anything. Basically, what our goal is to make it easy for the individual to be able to go to one place and be able to see the many,
Yeah.
articles from, say, CHUV,
Yeah.
West Virginia Home Educators Association, HSLDA, that's what the hub does. The hub links you to those social media platforms, the support groups,
Yeah. Because
shows you co-ops.
your alternatives to find this stuff by accident,
Yeah, it's like it gets lost in our Facebook groups and stuff, which are also great support, but it gets lost. And if you're
Yeah.
new, it's overwhelming. It's a place where you can go back and just, at least get a starting point. So, I mean, we're not in competition with anybody or anything like that. It's just we we actually want to help the other groups get the people to the groups,
Yeah.
get the
This
people to the
website,
right information.
this website has the potential to be linking to everybody. There's so it's built on Squarespace, so it's really, really easy to use. But there's so much stuff out there that we don't even know about. I mean, what I live in Putnam County. I have no idea what's going on in Wood County, but if you tell me what's going on in Wood County, I can put it on the website, and I mean, it would be a lot of work and, you know, but we'd be willing,
I'm willing
to,
to do it. I'm willing to
yeah,
link it because I feel it's that important.
yeah,
So if anybody listening to this, if you have a co-op, if you have a group or a social media page or whatever, then email us, send us a link. I will link it up. It is a lot of work to go and make sure everything is going by the law and all that. But again, I feel it's worth it to have a place where an individual can go and get a starting point, be able to, instead of getting lost and getting discouraged. We don't want, and that's the reason we started it, is because people were so confused and getting discouraged and overwhelmed.
and a lot of that was because they naturally, you would think, well, I'll call the Board of Education, and they'll just straight up lie to you, either by omission or
Right.
ignorance or malice. It could be malice that we know. It's no stretch and no exaggeration that there are people in this state that hate homeschooling that work for boards of education, and they're not shy about it. And if you call one of those persons and you get them on the phone, they will go right in your ear and lie to you about what's required. And so we'll break all that down in the next episode, and to make sure everybody understands very clearly what happened, because the West Virginia law, fortunately for us, is really clear. There's no debate, in how it works in this state and what you need to do. And then you tell the Board of Education, have a Coke and a smile. I don't need your input, don't need your help. Thank you. Have a nice day. And a lot of people that they don't want to be confrontational, but sometimes you have to set proper boundaries around yourself. And HSLDA is really great at that, because Mike Donnelly he's got a computer, a keyboard, right? He loves to type letters to boards of education and stuff it right down their throat. So he ain't shy about it. You can also, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can go back. We did an event last year that was broadcast live and archived, and we go through a lot of this stuff there. We had Mike Donnelly live via Zoom. There you can go back, and that's still on our YouTube channel. So we'll be looking for the next episode here in about a week. And until then, everyone, enjoy your journey. We'll talk to you next time.